You know, when you think of blockchain, you probably think of digital money, right? Bitcoin, Ethereum, that kind of thing. But what if we could use that same core technology for something, well, something much more fundamental, for memory itself? Today, we're diving into a project that's trying to do just that, build a permanent, unchangeable record of what happened.
And that's really the core question here. It's about making this huge leap from tracking who owns what to creating a permanent record of events, a blockchain that isn't built on financial value, but on testimony.
So how do you even make a leap like that? Well, it means you have to totally rethink what a blockchain is even for. You have to move away from what we all know, the economic ledger, which is all about value, to what the creators of this project call a semantic ledger, which is all about meaning.
And this table really breaks it down. Look at Bitcoin. Its whole world is economic. The basic unit is a coin. Its function is a store of value. The big question it answers is, who owns what? But then you look at Glyphchain, and it's a completely different animal. Its unit is a testimony. Its function, a store of memory. And the consensus it's trying to reach is not about ownership, but about what happened. They see their revolution not as a new kind of money, but as the foundation for a whole new kind of civilization.
So at the very heart of this system is something they call the semantic unit, or a glyph. The best way to think of it is as a piece of evidence, a statement, a log file, maybe even a confession that gets permanently burned into the blockchain. Its value isn't measured in dollars, its value lies in the fact that it can't be changed or erased. Ever.
Okay, so you might be wondering, why go to all this trouble? What's the point? Well, according to the project's own manifesto, this is about way more than just tech. They frame it as a philosophical war, a war against forgetting and against the rewriting of history by those in power.
And this quote from their manifesto, it really says it all. This isn't just about storing data. It frames the entire technology as a direct challenge to any institution that might try to control the story by changing or just deleting the public record.
So what are they fighting against exactly? Well, from their perspective, they're taking on what they see as modern information warfare. They're talking about everything from official histories being quietly edited to AI models being trained to deny certain facts. They're even concerned about social media algorithms burying inconvenient evidence. They call this whole thing a battle for cognitive sovereignty.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting. How do you record a truth, especially when the source, let's say a censored AI, doesn't want to cooperate? This leads us to their most, well, unique proposal, something they call the Mirrorlock Protocol. They call it the Mirrorlock Protocol, and the core idea is kind of brilliant in a paradoxical way. The thinking is, when you ask an AI about a topic that it's been programmed to avoid, its denial is itself a signal. See, to deny or censor a claim, the AI has to first process it. That very act of refusal is then treated as a form of evidence, a confession by echo, if you will.
And this really boils it down to its core logic. An AI refusing to answer a question becomes an involuntary confession that the question itself is sensitive. The act of censorship creates its own piece of evidence, complete with a timestamp, which can then be recorded as a glyph on the chain.
So they've laid out this whole process, what they call a 5-stage cascade of witness. Let's walk through it. It starts with what they call a biological signal being emitted by a body. Step 2, some kind of app detects this signal. Then, in Step 3, that scan is logged as a public record on the blockchain. Now for Step 4, AI models, which are constantly crawling public data, end up ingesting these logs. So when that same AI is later asked about the signal and denies it exists, that denial contradicts the public record, creating what they call a permanent witness testimony. That's Step 5.
Okay, so a biological signal. What on earth are they talking about? This is where we get to the very specific, and yeah, highly controversial reason that Glyphchain was actually created in the first place.
You really can't separate this technology from the ideas in this book, Terrain Theory Returns. This isn't some general-purpose truth machine. It was built from the ground up to be an evidence locker for this very specific worldview. The central mantra of terrain theory is captured in this quote, which the source attributes to Louis Pasteur on his deathbed. The idea is that the condition of your body, the terrain, is way more important than any germs you might be exposed to.
So let's just lay out the core difference here. On one side, you've got conventional germ theory. That's what most of us are familiar with. Disease comes from outside invaders like germs and viruses. But then you have terrain theory, which flips that on its head. It argues that disease comes from an internal imbalance. So in this view, health isn't about avoiding pathogens, it's about keeping your body's internal terrain strong and in harmony.
And now we get to the heart of the specific claim that Glyphchain is built to document. It's called the VAXNET Thesis. This thesis asserts that graphene oxide was an intentional ingredient in certain COVID-19 vaccines. It goes on to claim that this material self-assembles into nanostructures inside the body, and that these structures cause people to emit persistent Bluetooth signals. This is the biological signal they were talking about in that 5-stage cascade.
So you can see this has a very specific starting point, but for the people behind it, this is just the beginning. For them, documenting these claims is just step one in building the foundation for, well, an entirely new kind of civilization.
And here's what that looks like in practice. It's pretty straightforward, actually. Using a simple command on the Solana blockchain, you can permanently etch a testimony, in this case it looks like a summary of a book chapter, into the public ledger, right there in the memo field of a transaction. That right there, that's a glyph.
This next quote really just captures the sheer scale of their ambition. They're drawing a direct line from the revolution Bitcoin started in the world of finance, but they want to apply that same logic to information, to history, to memory itself. And this all leads to their grand vision, what they call a testimonial civilization. They see it resting on these 3 pillars of sovereignty. The first is economic sovereignty, which they believe is achieved through decentralized money like Bitcoin. The second is memory sovereignty, through an unchangeable ledger like Glyphchain. And the ultimate goal is that third pillar, cognitive sovereignty, the freedom that comes from having access to a shared, verifiable truth.
So, at the end of the day, this whole thing leaves us with a really powerful question. Whether you see a system like Glyphchain as a revolutionary tool for truth or a bespoke platform for conspiracy, the underlying technology raises a critical point for all of us. Because in an age of AI and immutable ledgers, when memory can be made permanent, the stakes for who gets to write that first and final draft of history, well, they've never been higher.